Hitting it off with the dad was like, okay, kind of out of pocket, girl, because he's not any better than his son. Let me say it again closer. The MMC blushes. This book, not to be dramatic, but it changed my life. Welcome officially to my June wrap-up. Do I have the stats off the top of my head, off the top of the dome? No. I don't know what the stats are. Pages read will pop up on the screen. Average rating will pop up on the screen, and books read will also pop up on the screen. I think I read 10. It's a little bit of a slower reading month for me, and this is because I started Manacled, and I've been reading Manacled for probably 3 weeks now, and I've made little to no progress. Actually, that's not true. I'm probably about 75% of the way done. But anyways, let's get into the 10 books that I read in the month of July, what I think about them, what I rated them, all that jazz. You know what a wrap up is. My name is Reagan. I make book content. I love to read. If you like to read, we're gonna be friends. So let's start with the first book I read in July. This is The Great BBL, and I ended up rating this 4 stars. I read this at the beach, which I think was the perfect place to read it. I also dual read it, which I was like listening to the audiobook and reading it at the same time, like following along in the book. I think that was also a great way to read it. The audiobook was done really well, as all of Emily Henry's audiobooks are. I see the criticisms that people get. Margaret is too much of a part of a story. A lot of it could be cut out. The romance is like on the GL. However, I hate this up. See what you're saying. However, don't agree. On Fable, I stated that this book tried to do so many things, and I feel like it did all of them like mediocre. It wasn't a 5-star for me, so like everything was good, but it wasn't like, wow, amazing, I'm in love. It was like good. So this book did all of those things well, but like not well enough to where it pushed it to a 5-star. But also, I don't foresee any of Emily Henry's books being a total loss for me. I've read all of them and enjoyed all of them. I really did like the romance in this book. It was like so subtle, but in such an amazing and beautiful way. The knees brushing under the table, the hands brushing when they cross paths, way that they found each other everywhere. It was just really cute. I think if you think you're gonna like this book, go for it. I thought it was a great read and I had a lot of fun. Next, we had Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. Peep the vibe switch. Peep the vibe switch. Emily Henry, Penelope Douglas. We were all over the place this month. I read Credence last month and I rated it low, but I kind of enjoyed it, but I like couldn't rate it any higher in my conscience. This I just rated low because I didn't like it. I thought I was gonna love the ex-boyfriend's daddy trope. I liked the idea. I didn't like the execution in this book specifically. I rated this a 1.5. I have no doubt in my mind that the main character in this book, the MMC, has not aged a day mentally since 16, and it shows. I feel like all of Penelope Douglas's MMCs, like they cannot take care of themselves. They need a woman come in and organize their life. It's like, hello, you're 40. Get it the fuck together. I honestly don't remember too much about this book. I just remember being like, I'm bored and like concerned. You knew where it was going because of the trope. It was kind of predictable, but also the twist that we got thrown, it was like, what the hell? Where was that coming from? Why did that even need to happen? Even though the boyfriend was kind of like bad, hitting it off with the dad was like, okay, kind of out of pocket, girl, because he's not any better than his son. But did I eat it up in like 24 hours? Yeah, sure. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? Next, I read Love Redesigned. Nope. That is not what it's called. Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. And this is the second book in the Lakefront Billionaire series by Lauren Asher, like the spinoff from, what was it? Dreamland. Yeah, Dreamland Billionaires. That was the series that it's called. This book I also read on the beach. Perfect place to read it because this was set in Hawaii. I rated this 4 stars. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. And you know what? The man blushes. The MMC blushes. Let me say it again closer. The MMC blushes. I'm here for that like every time. He was like a grumpy billionaire with a son who's like has a tragic past, and she'll like say something and then he blushes. Are you kidding? That was all I needed to know. You could have told me that in the blurb and I would have been like 5 stars. However, it was 4 stars. I didn't feel like it was too long, but I felt like we could have done more in the length that it was. Especially with the ending, I felt like it was a little bit rushed. I did like the ending. For 600 pages, we could have definitely paced things out a little bit better. That was my only complaint, was like a slight pacing issue. Overall, I was not expecting to like this book, but I ended up really liking it. I'm glad I read it, and I am going to be reading the next one in the series. The third one isn't out yet, and this has been out for quite a while. So I'm like, yes, Lauren, girl, take your time. Give me good content. We don't need to rush through the release. I've been saying that I was going to read this book for like the entire year, and I finally got to that. And it's Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, and wow, I'm so glad I read it. I also read this at the beach over my 4th of July vacation. I can't believe 4th of July was this month. That feels like literally forever ago. I rated this a 4.5. Honestly, I might bump it up to a 5. This book, not to be dramatic, but it changed my life. I now want to make every single one of my female friends read it. I think the title of this book should have just been Decenter Men, because wow, the through line in all of these stories is that her friends were there and they were like the constant in her life. But it was just magical. I think I read it at the right time in the right place. Even if you don't think it's going to be for you, I think try it because you might learn something. Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto is the next book, and I rated this motherfucking 5 stars. 5 stars. One of the best romance books I've read in a long, long time. First of all, look at the cover. That's gorgeous. Want to hang it up on my wall. This is about 2 people that are in the orchestra. The male main character is famous and in like this band, a rock violin band, whatever. They meet at a separate location and the male main character doesn't remember that he literally sits across from her in the orchestra where they were. And then it sparks this whole thing. He becomes obsessed. Let me tell you, boy, obsessed. He was on his knees for her. The tension in this book, holy shit, you could cut it with a knife. I haven't read tension like this in a while. The way that Julie Soto writes about music feels like her writing about sex. I can't even describe it. The way she uses music to show the tension between the characters, but also show the different emotions between the characters. There's not even music in this book. There's not even lyrics. It's an orchestra. It's purely instrumental classical music. And somehow, the way she writes about it, it feels like I'm listening to a love song, literally in the title. Like, it was so good. While I was reading this book, I had the urge several different times to pick up my phone, open Spotify, and put on classical music in the background. And honestly, maybe I should have, because that would have increased the vibes like by 100 times, I think. The obsession this man had with our FMC, it was delicious. You could just tell he wanted her so bad and he wanted to know everything about her, but he didn't want to know everything about her. Like, he was chastising himself for wanting this, but like he wanted it so bad that he just had to know it anyway. The things he would do for her, he's also a billionaire, so we have that trope in here where he can just spend all his money on this girl and just make her swoon. And it was so good. Like, if you're gonna pick up any book that I recommend you, pick up this one, especially for romance. It was so good. I don't know why more people aren't talking about it. Wow, every time I think about it, wow. Next, we have a fantasy book. I felt like I read a lot more fantasy than I did this month, and I actually didn't. This is, might I say, the only fantasy book I read this month, The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillick. I love this cover and I love this book. It's actually so gorgeous. This is one of the only sprayed edges that I will accept ever, because look at it. It's stunning. The only thing I wrote in my review on Fable for this is I want a big fat hug from this gargoyle. Like, so bad. He was my favorite character, and everyone and their mother says that, but like, they be right. They'd be right. It's so cute and magical. Feels like such a warm hug. At the end of the day, I know everything in Rachel Gillick's books will always be okay. And so when I read them, I'm like, this is fun, but like, I'm not anxious. My tummy is not fluttering, which is perfect because you don't need to be anxious all the time when you're reading. Also, if you can get your hands on the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, would recommend as well. We go downhill from there. Under Lock and Key by Lana Ferguson. This one sucked. Bad. 2 stars. Boo, 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 tomato, tomato, tomato. I thought this was gonna be a really fun time. I read her like werewolf shifter romance a while ago. Super fun time, very spicy, turned my brain off, just got to read. This, not so fun. This was like, for some reason, oh my god, we have to save the world type of vibe. A romance book about a Loch Ness monster shifter. For some reason, it was the fucking end of the world. We had this big problem, mystery, like magical thing that was very dire. Survival of Scotland and like the world as we know it. And I was like, guys, he shifts into the Loch Ness monster. What are we doing? Everyone calm down, everyone breathe. Count with me. In for 3 and out for 3. Like, let it go. I think that was really just my problem. Like, I wanted to read a cutesy little romance about a Loch Ness monster shifter and be like, yay, this is so silly. But it wasn't silly. It was like serious for some reason. And I think that's where the only issue I really had with it. Like, other than that, typical Lana Ferguson. Spicy, writing was okay, plot was, well, not in this situation, the plot was not fine, but normally the plots are like fine, entertaining, short. For some reason, the line in the sand was drawn for me here. This was unbelievable. I couldn't believe this. But like, I can believe a gargoyle and a werewolf shifter, but like this, no. Apparently, unbelievable for me. This is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I ended up rating this at 4 stars. I might take that rating down because I did see someone, Dylan Joseph, I think, talk about this book, and he was like, I hate when people use world wars to make the book evoke emotion in you instead of using their characters to invoke emotion in you. But this was a historical fiction romance kind of situation, and I had a good time. There was a lot of French language and like sentences in French that they wouldn't translate. Maybe the audiobook didn't translate, but I was able to translate for myself, and I thought that was fun. It follows two sisters, and one sister is very passive in the war, and then the other is very active in a way. She takes up spying, while the other sister stays home and takes care of her child. But these two diverging paths in this war and how they come together and all the different things that happen, it was very sad. I didn't cry, but it was sad. Yeah, it wasn't like my favorite, but it wasn't like bad. I like Kristen Hanna in general. I probably won't be reading a ton more of her books though, because they're getting repetitive in the sense of like they all follow two female characters, one who does like the typical path and then one who does something like off the road, off the typical path. It's always like traditional versus non-traditional values and centering around women, so it does get a little repetitive. So I might have to just spread out the books a little bit. That would be my recommendation, is to spread them out. Next was super fun billionaire romance that I definitely recommend, Summer in the City by Alex Astor, Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, 8 down. Our FMC is like a big screenwriter, but she's anonymous, and she meets this guy in a club in her last day in New York City. Before she moves away, she has this really bad encounter with him, and then when she moves back for the screenplay she's writing, turns out that he is her neighbor. He's really hot, and she wants him. Not at first, but she does eventually. Overall, just really fun. I've heard a few people say it's like a love letter to New York City. Facts. Very much so. If you were reading this in the city, that would be so much fun. It inspired a little Kindle design from that. So was it like super memorable? No. But it was super fun while I was reading it. So like based off the vibes, I rated it 4 stars. Slightly forgettable. I mean, it was so good while I was reading it, but I don't really like latch on to the content so much. Last book I read in the month, totally recommend. Got myself into a new Mafia series. This is The Sweetest Oblivion by Danielle Laurie. It was just so fun. I ended up rating this 4 stars as well. Nicholas Russo is set to marry her sister. Her sister's in love with another man, and Nicholas Russo gets obsessed with Elena and like wants her really bad. I don't even remember what happened in this book, but it ate. I would recommend. I couldn't even really tell you what it's about. I know there's 2 other books, but I will be reading them. It was just like, it flew by. I get that they're Italian, right? I get that there's like a New York Italian vibe there. However, if you're not going to speak Italian in the entire book, like there was literally no Italian in the audiobook at all, except for every once in a while they would go, Mama. It's like, okay, calm the hell down. Maybe in the book it's written as mama, the Italian. It's like that video of that girl on TikTok who was like, I'm not a hey mamas lesbian because I say it in Spanish. And then she goes, I don't say hey mamas, I say hey mamas.
I say it in Spanish, so instead of saying like come here mamas, I'll be like come here mama.
Or like whatever. It's like, girl, you said the same thing. That is literally the same thing. That's how I felt reading this book. I was like, okay, just say mom. Just say mama. Like you don't have to say it in this like heavy bad Italian accent. There was no other Italian in the book except for mama and papa. And every time it would be like, mama, papa, okay, we get it, they're Italian. We get it. It just started to piss me off by the end. I was like, this is just unreasonable. That was it. That's all I read this month. 10 books, not too bad, not too shabby. Other than that, thank you so much. Bye.